Have you noticed the new clock on Adams Avenue? The one across from Joe Bean's Coffee and outside of City Hall? Well, it's actually not new. It's very, very old. But to understand what this clock means to us today, we have to take a trip way back in time. In the early 1900s, Dr. George and Jean Burney moved from Canada to La Grande, Oregon, and started a jewelry store. At their jewelry store, they sold jewelry, watches, and spectacles. And when they moved, they brought with them a large cast iron clock, the original of the one you see standing there today. The business passed to the Hughes family in 1965, but the Hughes family didn't get to enjoy the clock for very long. In the 1970s, Adams Avenue was still being used by large shipping trucks to transport supplies through La Grande. And in the middle of the night, one of these trucks parked near the clock. In those days, roads were higher in the center and lower on the sides, and on this particular night, the side of the truck sticking out caught the top of the clock and brought it crashing down. The Hughes were called and they took the top of their clock to the farm, where it sat under a tree for many, many years. The base remained on Adams Avenue close to where it sits, restored today. Now, fast forward to 2015, meet Matt Orthman. Matt is a local iron worker. Matt heard about the clock and took an interest in gathering up the pieces eventually to be restored.
So a friend came to me a couple years ago and asked me if I could restore the tower that was sitting outside of Allstate, which it used to be Burney's Jewelry. Basically, it sat in here in my shop from that time until we started actually working on the project.
Fast forward another year to 2016 and meet Christine Jarsky. Christine is the director of urban renewal in La Grande. When she came on board as the director, she decided to make the project of restoring the clock her own as a part of the La Grande Streetscape project.
This thing is massive. I mean, the frame weighs like 350 pounds. It's huge. And part of that was rusted and part of it was still in really good condition.
Well, I thought the clock tower looked bad. And when I saw this, man, it looked literally like I was resurrecting something from the dead. I was gonna have to. And so, I mean, there was jagged edges, stuff busted out, and then, like I said, just years of like the wood that was on the inside just rotted and mud and bird's nests and everything. So it just looked like, oh my gosh, where did we find this space shuttle that crashed here a million years ago and we just unearthed it? Like, what is this thing?
First, he cleaned it out, removing all the rust, drilling and tapping out the screws, cleaning up the old materials that were well worn from years of sitting under a tree. After this, he began to restore it piece by piece. He reforged the cast iron door, filled the cracks in the base, recreated from scratch many of the lost pieces, including the acanthus leaves that adorn the work, and so much more.
If they erected the Titanic from the depths and they rebuilt it, I mean, can you imagine? I mean, obviously much smaller scale, but it's a historic piece that has beauty, and there would be such a huge responsibility for the people working on it to do it justice, to make it just like the original or better.
And finally, after nearly a year of labor, on October 25th, 2018, 2, 3, yay!
There's just really a lot of care and respect for this item. The Hughes family, when they talk about it, they're very emotional. There's a strong attachment to this iconic structure. And I think a lot of our citizens are going to have that same attachment.
This is a historic piece. It's worth a lot, not only monetarily, but to a lot of people as far as, just emotionally, their attachment to it. And then finally seeing it put up and seeing people across the city come together and that have come together to bring it to its completion. There's going to be, a whirlwind of emotions, but pride, the relief.
People in La Grande, that has always been one of the things. What happened to the clock? Where is the clock? So now we can say it's in City Hall. I think it's a closing.
So, for those of you who have been around for a while, now you know what happened to the clock. And for you who are new to LeGrand like me, now you know what the clock is and what it means to LeGrand. For LeGrand Alive, I'm Will Bowman.